Hell, leaders at countries A through Z, they have no help unless they entertain locations, areas, and states, quality aspects, and in fact, human nature itself, criminally foreign influence. Go further and say hyper criminally foreign influence. I'm not even a lawyer. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a doctor. I'm capable of delineating their delusions from their criminal foreign influences, those positions. And I, like others, were are shown means and needs to discern how and why the experts on the names of the people of the sciences are making confessions to the kids. They're only capable of it. And those confessions are also confirmations and demonstrations of their collusion slash S. At and next to each of the campuses I went are people who colluded to put fake things in databases at the campuses off of it and then use that. Put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. Central Connecticut State University has many people tied to a Mike Pandolf involved with wire crimes, mail crimes, federal evidences crimes at all sides of cases and criminal enterprises. I mean, but and criminal and civil cases, and the courts themselves and the police forms involved with all kinds of federal evidences crimes, crime methods, all along Route 175 from the founding locations in Old Weathersfield are a bunch of intelligence families that that work as families with other people's names in their mouths and with crimes in their mouths. When they're speaking about crimes, when they're collusion slash S with all natures of crime scenes. At countries A through Z, suits and ties, counters, exceptions. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born for a torture, extortion, and fact treatment nature slavery method against every single person. The only reason that appears to be debatable is because you guys used in self-value use collusions with uses syntactically of how sickly distinctly, but also how non-distinctly everyone was fact treatment nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved. And if everyone pays attention to the law, the rules with that, everyone was forced to blame other things, others or selves. Why and how? Everyone was fact treatment nature tortured, extorted, and enslaved. When you guys would try to debate that, as you would, you're only capable of it. You start self-valuing uses of criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought takes on principles with American history, taught tactically ulterior from how James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan communicated for us to understand that and why and how. For example, they had to leave slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. They had no choice. They didn't have free speech. Everyone had to pretend they had free speech to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed and that was adapted to, including if it was a majority of people, including if it was everyone. So that's why the suburbs are manifest now, where nature's demonstrating negative value, nature progressions, acts, and nature is tied to it. It's demonstrating that it's causing pollution in the ocean because we have an identity of grounds, identity of relationship to itself that is only positive as criminal insidious in its nature. Nature is also demonstrating and has been demonstrating to us how that was and is used remotely. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, wrought, and pretending other at the same time, 3 ways. For the breaching method that has that self-value at countries A through Z. Because the child abused you at campuses A through Z and exceptions like homeschool. You had others spoken for nature's how nature communicates with principles to black people. We have black people's whites of eyes, and we have nature generating communications to us with this. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. We have eyes distinctly from the other species' bodies, but also non-distinctly. I just saw in a YouTube video, YouTube short video somewhere. There's even an octopus that has fake eyes, and it looked like a big scary face this consciousness to an extent shared. In other words, even with fish. In other words, even with insects. If we pay attention, In other words, since each campus I went to has people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders who have ties to each other. Also with the World Trade Center attack and with these countries in the news. Whole bunch of people tied to Connecticut boxing gyms from Weathersfield with their syntax have roles with identity theft, frauds, slanders against me. In other words, I can't get the police on paper. They put fake conversations with me as a kid. Now as an adult, they have intercities police departments involved with them with the ones involved, and they're bringing up my neighbors' names like Collusions. And Bob Chase brought up a Phil Collusions, but Phil Collusions after that also non-verbally confirmed. He has roles with demonstrated. He has roles with a principal upskirt nature and other principal child abusers and educators of his involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids with foreign bodies, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and their roles with a bunch of judges, family members, and prosecutors, family members, and victims advocates involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, in all these other countries, and those same families with names at and next to the campuses intercities, including all ages and natures of campuses, including medical campuses and fire campuses, and the people next to the campuses running into high live progressions, where they have all sides of it. They just completely fake conversations and transcripts into databases. They refuse to identify themselves legitimately into branch because they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, which is one of the things manifest at countries A through Z. They have self-value roles with it, the locations, areas, and states. Any leader tries to counter that and what it caused and keeps, they're sensed through our own, as our own being the human species body of individual bodies. All group differences generated to show us this by what's generating them. But see, now that has been replaced. We have been systems generating group differences with unnatural, only natural as criminal insidiousness, like with the the nuclear energy generation, and why and how we need energy, and everyone's fighting about opinions about jobs dishonestly. But in other words, you guys can't even follow mandated law to have that proven. And then the people want to attack the principle because of this, and they know that they can't speak clearly about their premises because we know countries A through Z went to negotiation tables and have stayed, blaming other things, others, themselves for what really designed the suburbs. Before America's founders, the suburbs were born. There are houses that were built, and they were built with slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies. And when you guys speak about slavery and or the campuses, the experts on it, sickly distinctly, they're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw premises treatments, nature as criminal insidiousness. In other words, so come on, you guys. In other words, the leaders need help to figure out how they're going to go with more nuclear weapons, more nuclear threats. Not one country has possession of their locations, areas, and states. We are breached, but by the hyperforeign. And nature would demonstrate there's a hyperforeign. There's slavery. There's crazy things against every colonist, every Native American, non-distinctly still entrenched. Our founders had to communicate for us to understand why and how they had to leave the entrenchments. You guys have the experts of the people of the sciences using how they learned it, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. From principles, treatments that can't defend that as styles, natures of it, and afford to have principles like black pupils, whites of eyes. Principles by nature itself, always true, showing us. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. Those same colors are white and black. That means that's inseparable from how the breaching method reassigned with nature communicates with black and white. And then America's founders were born. That means roles had already been sustained with that breaching method, everyone hurting each other in themselves, or sensing anyone not doing that, even if it was a majority of people, even if it was everyone. You guys can't afford to have discern with the nations, how the ancients used the republic for which we stand, the campuses, and the pantheism that to see through even its own ism. It's discernible where and how you guys use isms and contrasts, in other words. And names blame, leaving out this game, leaving out what's actually. We don't even need to have it declassified to ourselves. Many countries are shared here and there, including the countries that are aimed with nuclear problems. Even peaceful nuclear generation. Look how even in Fukushima, even an ocean wave took out the nuclear thing, made all these problems. They have criminal insidious nature's definitions of a stability. Therefore, nature communicates about stability much better. In other words, we have to understand this phrase, criminal insidiousness. And we're going to have to pay attention to how there are overt criminal enterprises and private ones juxtaposed also with prosecutors and judges as family members, using where they are used remotely, speaking for adults or speaking for kid or immaturity, all kinds of collusions with names with the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices. People with the name Demoro are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirming their roles, with also with the name Collusions, which was brought up by the Wethersfield police over the phone. They faked me being at the police station and having a conversation with them as a kid. And then as an adult too, put me in fake conversations, fake sentence, or at least or more, with one of the Mendez older brothers. I never had a word of conversation with him in my life. They're putting fake ties to people like police departments with retired police chiefs, plural. At least two of them tied to 80 Carroll Drive, and people where they used to live. And with their intimate ties too in their families, like Mazzucato Bakery and Modern Pastry. Increasingly, Wethersfield police and people tied to them are recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirm they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me, with the police chief's families and intimate ties, and Rose planting evidence in my area and the parallels to it, the streets parallel. The people there will tell you that too, but you have to ask them right. See, this is a game where they play since I've been watching them since I was a kid. These are people increasingly involved with years apart untimely deaths, years apart murders, years apart totally distinct body dumping spots, and Time News collusion/S. These are roles with the difference of the guilt of the intelligence at the news locations or the intelligence next to it. So they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately, and they're making confessions. They're bringing up their uses of locations. A whole bunch of people next to the state capitol involved with the military, involved with my grammar school, will tell you I never even saw them on the grammar school. I had nothing to do with them. They're putting fake things in databases. Increasingly, people tied to a Leahy family, and as a Leahy family, as a family, and women involved with sexual and medical offenders, with men in their family that are personally and professionally involved with judges and prosecutors from more than one court, personally and professionally involved with them, with predicate acts with campuses behind people's backs, fake ties to kids, fake ties to adults, collusions with the fake conversations with various natures of federal criminals, overt criminal enterprise, and private ones at the same time. All these things are so simple, and so they bring revelations, but you guys don't follow mandated law. So, in other words, get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. They increasingly have roles with all the countries involved with the World Trade Center attack, and since that's recorded too. After the World Trade Center attack too, they attached me to fake conversations with themselves, recording that true before it too. People with the names Scalora and Demoro and Kerr, also with judges and prosecutors involved with the Kerr, with Officer Jerry Miller, for him on Facebook. And for the ones that attached me to fake conversations with them as a kid and now as an adult, like these Mendez police, are also with the hallway of New Britain Superior Court, involved with men and women at that court, involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, with Wethersfield police, intercities through time, and writing forensics since I was a kid. They're increasingly involved with digital crimes, wire crimes, and with journalists, and with body dumping spots and murders, and tied confessions to that and uses of that. They're also confessing to a breaching method when they make subject treatments. We have many countries here with some fake people speaking about crimes together, whether they like each other or not, whether they agree or not, where they speak about peace and stability relative to each other. They leave out the hyperforeign. They leave out what we can discern, why and how really. The suburbs look almost exactly alike in America, Russia, and to Ukraine. And this is since before our founders were born. They didn't have cars. There was a torture, extortion, spec, human nature, slavery method on everyone. And everyone was rules with it against themselves and against everyone else to an extent, and that was checked. Otherwise, that body was sentenced. Including if that body was the majority of people and it was adapted to, including if it was everyone. Any grouping of countries to try to counter what it is causing keeps and is, while as locations, areas, and states think that it is, they can't afford to. Nature shows us how to answer questions better than perfect / hyper perfect, just so we can check. So please, I've asked Judge Napolitano on Facebook many times because the police forums involved with the confessions tied to his name, the name Napolitano, and Fox News. These are people next to Fox Connecticut News, involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart with the intelligence families involved. Also, the nutbags with religious spots. There's some Jewish syntax with some domain family members involved with the families of the retired police chiefs and people from other areas who've been involved with predicate acts in my street from other areas. And with the campuses behind my back and pretending other with the news too. Get the news to fake the you guys follow mandate law. Any one of the branches or the news. But get one of them on paper now, please. Fix the fake World Trade Center attack conversations. Note how I was in the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center. The intelligence, foreign and domestic military attached me and touched other people to change conversations about that. And they attached me to fake conversations about that. And with them themselves and with others, the news media, all kinds of private people. They pretended I had tied to doctors as a kid as of mental health that weren't at all. They're trying to pretend other by saying, oh, we're at a corner with the Joe DeMoro who said that to some girl when I walked, I didn't even respond to it. And that's one of the ones at Trinity College involved with a Joshua Stryker and a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their family members, involved with a whole bunch of people. Paul Zano, too. I never tried to contact him in my life. I only know him seeking, planting federal evidence, his crimes, fake ties, fake nation ties to me. As his roles with people that are tied to proven years apart, first forced sexual and medical offenders of kids, including religious nutbags. So, in other words, Johnson's and Wales also has other people involved. That's with Rhode Island campuses, interstates campuses, involved with the Paul Zano, and people with UConn, also with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids at Hartford Hospital, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones with names next to it. My owl should fear God for coming and playing these games with them. Get him off the fake ties to me and get him on paper with them too, with his confessions too.